everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to show you how to put LEDs into your clock, and so I hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to Daddy and Daughter Electronics. We are going to put in our LEDs into our Lexan or whatever you're using. What you need is your Lexan that you used from the previous videos. You will also need LEDs that I recommend you use clear because it's easier to read. So these are my red clear LEDs that I'm going to be using. You also need wires that are thick enough to move the current. You will also need needle nose pliers. You will also need a wire stripper. For this, you will need a solid wire to go around it. And I think we're ready. Your next step is to remove the protective tape that we put on in the first video. If you're using anything like Lexan, you might want to put masking tape around your work area because it might get scratched. But leave enough room so then the wire that's going around it has enough room to do its thing. Now we have placed our wires in. As you can see, we have a completely stripped solid wire going around the clock, and then we have this partly stripped solid wire that goes from here to here. We also have another single wire going this way that's underneath a wire, and another wire up here, and another solid wire right here that goes underneath it. And so, as you can see, it matches our diagram, except for the colors are a little different. So, on to our next step. Now, the step you've all been waiting for. Putting in the LEDs. We'll need our diagram. And the arrows, these little circle arrow things, are the LEDs. But the arrows stand for where the negative lead side is. If you don't know, the negative lead side is the short lead side. These two LEDs have already been put in, and the arrows are up. That means the negative side is up. The short lead is on the top, which is the negative side, because the arrows on the diagram point up.
Work slowly and carefully and double check your diagram. So each digit should have something that looks kind of like this in the middle where all the wires come in together. For now, you want to very loosely twist the leads together. Later, we will solder these leads and make sure that they make a good, tight connection. The leads on the outside, you might want to do like what we've done here. We've twisted them around the bare wire, and later we will solder this junction as well, and then we can trim off any excess wire. We also have started to take up our Scotch tape that is holding things in place. So far we have just the one digit. Another tip, it's better to know that you messed up something now than later. So I recommend, if you have something like a little 3-cell battery, you can use it to double check and just make sure that you don't have any LEDs that are the wrong way. You should have the two LEDs next to each other lighting up as you go around on your clock. Once you have all the LEDs in, it should look about like this. You can just leave it like this. After you've tested it, you can just deal with the twist-on connections for all these LEDs, although I personally recommend that you actually solder them, especially if you're going to put this into a child's room and you want it to work for more than a couple of days. So what I'm going to do next is I will dab a little solder on each of these connections, and then I'm also going to trim it up. Here is our finished soldered LED matrix from the front. And what I've done in this case, just to make it a little extra clean, is I ran a nice little ribbon cable, which goes to a breadboard for now, and eventually it will go to our custom circuit board for this clock. Here's a view of the back side of the clock after it's been soldered. Again, I decided to install a ribbon cable. It actually was an 8-wire ribbon cable, so I have a couple extra wires, which are what you see in this picture. Everything else is nice and tidy. So if I zoom in, we can see some of these solder connections. And notice that there's not an awful lot of solder on these connections. You just need enough to make sure that it's rigid. So here's one of those connections. Here's one of those edge connections. And one of those center connections from one of the digits. So just enough solder to make sure it's in there and fairly solid.
So I hope you understood everything in that video, and hopefully you'll have success with installing your LEDs. And tune in next time for how to program our clock.